Hello, I'm Jenna Budell with 18 WJTS, and we have some special guests joining us virtually. We will be speaking with Lieutenant Governor Suzanne and former Huntingburg Mayor, now new Executive Director of the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs, Denny. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be with you on what day is this? Is this
I
Wednesday?
think a Wednesday. I know, I kind of forgot myself.
It's great to be with you.
All right. So, of course, virtual works best right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, which leads me to what I would like to talk about first. We've been dealing with COVID-19 for 10 months now, I think, as Hoosiers. And we have restrictions, we have mask mandates, yet we still see cases rising. So, Lieutenant Governor, what do you think will help Indiana get this virus under control?
Well, a vaccine, of course. And we know that a vaccine will be arriving here in Indiana any day. We actually are anticipating 400,000 doses, and they will go to designated hospitals around the state. The reason they're going to the hospitals is because they have the cold storage capacity, which is important for the vaccine. But the 400,000 vaccines will be used to vaccine our healthcare workers, our hospital workers, our long-term care facilities, residents and workers there. And then they will end up being used for our at-risk and over 65 Hoosiers. The second phase, or the second round of the doses, we're expecting after the first of the year. And those will go to law enforcement, to teachers, to first responders. And then the third batch, or the third phase of the vaccines, will be available later in the spring, summer. And what our health officer shared with us is by mid to late summer, any Hoosier that wants to be vaccinated will be vaccinated. That, I believe, is what reduce the cases that we are experiencing right now. And when that happens, two things are going to occur. One, I think Hoosiers are going to feel relief and have some comfort that the vaccine is here, but there's also going to be a lot of frustration because everyone won't be able to get it initially. It'll be very similar to the testing and how it evolved. The vaccine will be in the same kind of stages and phases, but we know light is at the end of the tunnel, and I think that that gives us all some comfort. We just want to get 2020 behind us.
Absolutely. Yes. I know it brings me comfort, but it kind of leads me to another question. There are a lot of people who are ready to take the vaccine today, but there are a lot of people who are saying, I don't want to take the vaccine. What do you have to say to the people that are ready to take it? And some are saying, I'm not going to take it.
Well, the ones that are ready to take it, of course, they will have it available to them whenever they're in the appropriate phase. For those that don't want to take the vaccine, some of them I've heard Hoosiers express kind of, well, this has been a rushed thing. It's happened so quickly. Is it safe? But what our health officer shared with us a couple of weeks ago on a briefing call was these vaccines have actually been in research for years. And what they do is they develop a prototype, and then when a particular strain comes out, then they adapt that prototype to address that particular strain. So having heard that provided me, I know, with a lot of comfort, knowing that this isn't some rush deal that has been, accelerated. Yes, it has been accelerated, but it's something that has been developed and is safe. And I would encourage Hoosiers to understand that and to be open to getting a vaccine to protect themselves and to protect their loved ones.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about Okra. Now, I don't know who wants to answer this one, but just, what exactly is Okra? How does it help Indiana, specifically rural markets?
Well, I'll kind of do an initial kind of broad addressing of that, and then I'll let our new director of Okra kind of speak about his experience from Okra. And, the thing that we're so excited about former Mayor Denny being now the head of Okra is he has been on the receiving end. He's someone that has lived programs. And so he brings that perspective to this agency. And I believe as a result of that, we're going to see a lot of changes that will make this agency even better than it is. But basically, Okra is the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. It is an office that I oversee. It distributes $32 million of community development block grant money to our non-entitlement communities throughout Indiana. That is HUD money that goes to our smaller, more rural communities. And they have a number of programs in place to actually spur on economic opportunity in our downtown areas and in our small communities, but also to create quality of life in those more rural areas of Indiana. So that's kind of the broad perspective. And if I may, I will kind of punt to Denny Spinner and let him kind of address what his experience has been with Okra, or the Office of Community and Rural Affairs.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. As she mentioned, there's a lot of core competencies that we have as Okra, and those are capacity building, infrastructure, economic development, and quality of place. And as mayor of Huntingburg, I experienced all of those. Through the stellar designation, we were able to do some significant changes, everything from under the ground up to above the ground, that you could see happening across our community was due to a wonderful partnership that we had with the state of Indiana. And as this opportunity came forward for me to come in and lead this agency, it was an opportunity that I just could not pass by, hoping to take the experience that we had here in Huntingburg and apply that across the state, because I know that this is the core competencies that we deal with here are the foundations for rural Indiana to continue to thrive. We must have a foundation of all these things for them to build on to reach the capacities that we have in rural Indiana. And this is a critical time for rural Indiana coming through out of COVID. There's going to be opportunities here that exist in rural Indiana that have never existed before. And we want to take full advantage of that. I want to be able to work with the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor to lead that revitalization and recharge of Indiana, taking rural communities to the next level. And that's what excites me so much about being a part of this team. We have a very, in my first week in office now, I've learned we have an extremely capable team able to do and reach out and make change in communities. And it's just an exciting time for me to take this step and move into this leadership role. And I'm excited about working with all our leaders across the state of Indiana and making Indiana the thriving rural communities that we can be.
Of course. And so,
Jenna, may I just interject? We were
absolutely.
Mayor Spinner and I were at a ribbon cutting for RX Pharmacy in Washington and last week, and someone commented that we're creating kind of a southwestern Indiana kind of consortium up at the State House, with me being from Vanderburgh County, and now Denny Spinner from Du Bois County, and Misty Weisensteiner from Orange County, who heads up our tourism department. We are really kind of, Southwest Indiana is because, and then of course you've got your own Mark Messmer, who is the majority floor leader in the Senate. So we are really making sure that Southwest Indiana is represented well.
Absolutely. I understand that. But we talk a lot about rural communities, and some of us understand what rural, but maybe there's a question, what is actually considered rural for the state of Indiana?
Denny, do you want to?
Well, there are communities that, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, there are, by definition by HUD, there are entitlement and non-entitlement communities. Many of the larger communities have a direct access to CDBG type fundings, such as the Evansvilles, the Bloomingtons, Columbus, Indianapolis, and larger communities. But the communities under that threshold all work through our agency to make that connection to that federal funds that are available. So there is a definite list of communities that are available. I believe there's something like 17 or 18 communities in Indiana that are entitlement communities. Anyone below that threshold is considered rural, and we work with those counties and cities and towns directly to gain access to the funds that are available through them through HUD and other CDBG programs.
Well, while we're on the subject of rural communities, the lack of good broadband access, it's been an issue for years, but the pandemic has put the lack of access in the spotlight, with teaching, learning, working from home. How does the state of Indiana plan to help rural markets?
Well, one of the things that Governor Holcomb and I, along with the General Assembly, did is we allocated $100 million to expand rural Indiana into our unserved areas back at the end of 2018. And since that time, we have connected almost 22,000 households in communities all over Indiana. With the grants that we have awarded. In fact, Du Bois County has been the recipient of some of those grants. And one of the reasons we put that emphasis on connecting Hoosiers and expanding broadband and making it a priority of this administration is back in 2018, Purdue University did a study, said there were almost 500,000 Hoosiers in internet darkness. And if all those Hoosiers were connected, it would result in an additional $1 million to our state's economy every year. So we knew back in 2018 that it was critical to connect Hoosiers. As you mentioned, Jenna, now because of COVID, that need to be connected is even more important today than it was back then, because now that our students are e-learning, that workers are teleworking, and that healthcare services are being delivered telehealth, being connected is no longer a luxury. It is absolutely essential. So we continue to make that a priority of this administration. I know that the General Assembly joins us because we've heard from a number of legislators who are looking to introduce bills this coming session to be able to keep us moving forward on broadband. But we had exciting news that the federal government awarded $169 million to Indiana to also allow further action. So we are really excited about our federal partners also making being connected a priority. And Denny, I don't know if you want to jump in from your experience, as a mayor of a small rural community, how important that is to be connected.
Well, being connected is absolutely vital because if we look at the essential services that we need to provide as communities, the obvious things are gas, water, sewer, electric are things that cities and towns have traditionally provided. But alongside that, right now, just as important is that connectivity and that broadband. If we want to have people to continue to locate and thrive in small communities, broadband is absolutely essential. And the programs that are being rolled out by the lieutenant governor and the governor in this, as we approach this legislature, I know there's a lot of energy and focus going to be on how exactly do we do this in the best way, partnering as we did with the announcement from yesterday. How do we go alongside our federal partners and make sure that every spot on that map in Indiana is covered in some way? So we're going through the data that was just released yesterday on who is being served by the federal programs, and going to make sure that the gaps are closed by the state of Indiana in those areas where there may be some connectivity problems or issues that we can come alongside and fill those gaps in the best way possible.
And also, Mr. Spinner, I'd like to follow up with you. You clearly have the experience, but I want to know, why did you want this new role?
Well, that's an interesting question. I wanted this new role because Lieutenant Governor Crouch asked me to come into this role. There was no job that I enjoyed more in my life than being mayor of Huntingburg. I grew up in Huntingburg. It's my hometown. I have a passion for my hometown, and it was just a wonderful experience to be able to lead my community. But the experience of leading the community led to a great relationship with the state of Indiana, and realizing that what we were able to achieve as a community, because we had a team that worked so well together. I was fortunate to be at the head of that team, but we had everyone working together to a common goal to elevate our community to a higher level, to make it a city like no other. I have to say that, to make Huntingburg a city like no other. And as this opportunity, came up with the Lieutenant Governor approached and asked if I would be interested in leading this agency. I can tell you that there's probably no job I would ever leave being mayor of Huntingburg for, but this one, because I can see what the potential is in Indiana, and having the connection with the many city and county leaders that I've had through my relationship with AIM, it's just an opportunity that I could not pass by. And I have a passion for rural Indiana. I had a passion for Huntingburg, and I see so many wonderful men and women across our state that are working so hard every day to make rural Indiana a place that is exciting and a place that people want to be, and to be able to lead the agency that has had that direct impact and that direct connection with so many communities was an opportunity I just couldn't pass by.
Absolutely. I understand that. Lieutenant Governor, we've had a lot of accomplishments in Indiana, a lot of wonderful grants. But what do you consider, in these past 4 years, what would be your biggest accomplishment?
Oh my goodness, there are so many. And I think overall, having served in local government and then in state government as a state representative and then auditor of state and now lieutenant governor, I think what I am most proud of is the solid foundation that Indiana has put in place that has allowed us to weather this storm of COVID-19. As a result of strong fiscal conservative leadership over the past 16 years, we are in a great position economically. In fact, Jenna, we have created right under 28,000 jobs in 2020, new jobs, which is more than we created in 2019. And building permits throughout Indiana in 2020 are up 11% over 2019. So in spite of COVID, we are still experiencing a strong economic foundation, and that is taking place in our local communities throughout Indiana. So that is, I think, what I am most proud of is not just these 4 years as lieutenant governor, but really the past 16 years that I have been a part and have experienced that building of that solid foundation, which has helped us weather the storm and still have a now, our number one priority, of course, and it seems like it has overshadowed the past 4 years, is COVID-19. And making sure we come out of this as healthy and as safe as we can for Hoosiers. That is what we're focused on, and that seems like that has taken over really everything else that we accomplished and focused on prior to this year. Having said that, one thing that I am very passionate about is I chair the Intellectual and Developmental Disability Task Force. There are about 100,000 Hoosiers in Indiana who have autism, Down syndrome, or cerebral palsy. And that task force has worked and continues to work to ensure that those Hoosiers have access to safe, affordable, accessible environments. What I always say is our friends with disabilities are just friends with different abilities. And they have the same hopes and dreams and desires as each and every one of us. They want to have a job and have friends and love and be loved and be successful in life. And through that agency, we have focused on helping them fulfill the dreams they dream and live the lives they want to build. And that, I think, is one thing that I am most proud of over the past 4 years.
Absolutely. Well, we've got the past 4 years, and now we've got Mr. Spinner, Lieutenant Governor. What about the next 4 years? What are you hoping to see in the next 4?
Well, I think we will continue to focus on COVID-19. That is the most important, as I mentioned, is just getting through this next half of the year and through 2021 safe and moving forward. Creating jobs, of course, always is a number one consideration. Education, quality education, valuing our teachers is absolutely critical. For me and my agencies, I think broadband is a number one priority over the next 4 years. And what I shared with the governor and what we talk about is the human cost of COVID-19 and the families that have members who are suffering from mental illness or are challenged by addiction or are the victims of abuse or tend to be suicidal. those Hoosiers are the ones that are most vulnerable, and their supports have been disrupted throughout this COVID-19. So what I shared with the governor is that I want to focus over the next 4 years, of course, on my agencies and everything that I do as lieutenant governor, because Okra is one of the 4 agencies I had, and I also have numerous initiatives I had. But I really want to focus on mental health and how can we make sure that our Hoosiers have the support and the services that they need to be able to be whole, healthy, productive Hoosiers here in the state of Indiana. A healthy workforce depends on a healthy workforce. And so we need to be sure that we continue to move forward on all fronts. Jenny probably has some goals too, I bet.
Well, I think one of the goals that I look at as I came on board, this was already in place, but what we need to really develop is we have a rural road to recovery program that we're working on, and that is something that we really need to focus on, is how do we respond to, just as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, create a road path, a roadway to recovery for our rural communities, and using all the agencies that are under the Lieutenant Governor's purview to create that pathway to recovery. She mentioned mental health, and just this morning, as we were before I was on this call with you, we launched our 3rd round of COVID-19 response, and because of the information that we received in our first 2 rounds, where we touched over 9,500 jobs and 1,700 individuals, we've added to that the fact that you can get some funding, additional funding in this next round for mental health activities, the things that will touch the human side of this COVID pandemic. Those are things that we have to be able to reach out to. So this rural road to recovery, finding a way to not only do the infrastructure and the physical attributes of cities, but the mental aspect and the human aspect of cities and towns in rural Indiana. And that's got to be our goal. We've got to touch human lives and make this state. We have so many caring individuals in the state government that I've been able to meet over these last week and a half that are so committed to making this happen, and under the leadership of Governor Holcomb and Lieutenant Governor Crouch, I believe this is an opportune time for us to really make a tremendous impact.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining us today. I've really appreciated you talking with us, and it's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Safe rest of 2020 and happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. All right. Well, this has been Jenna Budell on 18 WJTS.